November 20th. No meeting. You have for attending on time. First item is the vote and approval of the agenda.
Approval.
Second.
Moved by Moines, second by Moines. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sign. And it is approved. Next item is the vote and approval of the October meeting minutes. Moved by Joaquin, seconded by Pleasant Hill. Any discussion on the October meeting minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Up next is our consent agenda, and it is a vote, but if there is an item to be discussed, entertain that after it's been moved and seconded. Moved. Second. Moved by Altoona, seconded by Clyde. Any on the consent? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Same sign. Consent is approved. Public comment. Anyone signed up? Anyone present from the public that wishes? Hearing none, we'll move on to the presentation, City of Des Moines, Safe Street for All Implementation Grant. What we got?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to hand over here to Steve Baber with the City of Des Moines. He's going to talk to you about lead up to their application that was successful recently in bringing home some dollars. Safe Streets for All implementation. All those, the MPO is coming into the final stages of creating its own regional comprehensive safety action plan. All of that is a setup to the next step, which is plan funds up to $50 million. Application. We have a lot of decisions before us, thinking about where, what, who. And so today is just to start to whet your appetite for thinking about how we prioritize projects in the region. We have a process laid out over the next coming months. So you're going to be hearing about this over the next few months. But to get us started, we're going to have Steve talk you through some of their thought process, their projects, about this time.
Thanks, Gunner. Gunner said I had an hour and 15, so I'm going to be pretty quick.
Let's take it to bed.
My name is Steve Neighbor. I am a Des Moines city engineer, Des Moines resident. Been here about a little over 9 years, and part of that spent 13 years in Chicago, and I've been my whole career is 20 plus years is doing municipal engineering. So I'm very excited to present this. Very excited about what the MPO is doing from a planning standpoint, and how do we reduce crashes resulting in fatalities and serious injuries. So that's the focus. How do we get those crashes resulting in death and serious injuries down to zero? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are, what we've been doing, and what's next. And also specifically related to the Safe Streets for All program, which will become eligible for you all once the MPO and team is all completed with that safety action plan here. We'll talk about where we're at. Just a couple snapshots. In the U.S., last year, 41,000 people were killed in traffic crashes. Okay, that would be equivalent to about 4 Boeing 737 planes crashing every week. Right, so you can imagine what the media would do with that, right? But we have 41,000 people killed last year. In Des Moines, there were in a 5-year period between 2016 and 2021, there were 28,000 crashes. 76 people were killed, 43 were sustained serious injuries. So on average, over that time period, that 5-year time period, we're looking over 100 people killed or seriously injured each year. And so this is a graph that we plotted from where we're at and where we want to go. And so as you see, obviously the trend line, our mayor and council have made it a vision and a goal to eliminate these deaths and serious injuries with a target year of 2040. Okay? And that is something that is required of a safety action plan for the Safe Streets for All program under the infrastructure. Just looking again at the numbers a little differently here, and we've got some of the 2024 data coming in with the fatalities. We've got, ironically, in Des Moines, you've got motorcycles. Going in blue there. It's kind of an odd thing I've seen in Iowa with motorcycle crashes. There have been a couple due to alcohol, as well, but, as you can see, there's kind of the numbers of, uh, no, okay. So we have this information, right? Well, we need to figure out a plan of attack, and that's what we've done. And that's what the MPO is doing from a region-wide basis of how do we tackle these, and get these numbers down. And take the safe streets approach, which essentially is, it's unacceptable to, allow these crashes to continue to occur. Doing the same thing doesn't change, okay? And so we developed an action plan that our city adopted in 2023 that has 5 focus areas, 19 actions, and 70 action steps that targets things that from doing things such as policies, safe streets for everyone, safe speeds, a culture of safety and behavior, and improvements in data and transparency. So these are kind of the focus areas that we're looking at here, and how do we do things? Okay, so we got an action plan, and within that action plan. And again, there's a lot here. I know it's not easy to see, but the map on the right is what we put in the action plan. It's our high entry network. It is where are our problem areas, okay? And so even though the high entry network is a smaller percentage of streets, I think it's 7% of the roadway miles in our streets, it accounts for 59% of the crashes resulting in fatalities and serious injuries. So, okay, we want to focus our efforts. We want to get the most attack these numbers quickly. This is where we look, okay? And then also what is actually happening, okay? And just to kind of highlight some of these things, 4-lane streets, four lane streets accounted for 42% of the fatalities and 23% of the injuries, yet they're only 4% of the miles of streets. And even though only 2% of crashes deal with vulnerable users, pedestrians and bicyclists, they accounted for almost a quarter of the fatalities. Okay, so our focus is fatalities and serious injuries. These are things we've got to look at here. Okay. The infrastructure bill came out in 2021 with a program that included safe streets for all. Its focus was eliminating fatalities and serious injuries due to crashes. Okay, and there are 2 grants. There are 2 types of funding: planning and demonstration, and implementation. Okay, in order to get an implementation, you must have an action plan adopted and in place. And these are just kind of some bullet points of how what the focus of the program is. Again, highlighting how do we prevent death and serious injuries on public streets. Okay. And again, they have other things. You're looking at equity, public engagement are huge in these programs. So we took a shot at it. We went in 2023, right after our action plan was adopted. We submitted an application. To put it to you bluntly, the application was focused on projects on the high entry network. So it made sense. It was projects on the high entry network, but it was 5 specific projects. Okay. And we didn't receive funding. There were 236 applications, 48 awards. And so what did we learn from that? Well, after the application, we called communities, including Minneapolis and others that were successful. What did they do? And really the highlight things were connecting the safety problems with the countermeasures. Okay, what's the problem and how we're addressing it? Okay, and then another thing was getting the bang for the buck. Okay, the entity that won in Iowa in 2023, they covered 27 miles in their application. We covered 5 project locations, right? So from an attractiveness standpoint, how do we get a bigger bang for the buck? So we went back to the drawing board and we took a different approach. So right side of the DSM, the name of our first application, we switched to Safer Streets DSM, prioritizing people. We went to a focus of, again, what are the problems that we identified in our action plan and how do we tackle them? Okay, and again, also taking that map and looking at it from an equity standpoint, using the MPO data that the MPO provides in terms of areas that have been disadvantaged, well, and putting together kind of a larger scale program that attacks a bigger picture. Okay, we still are doing some projects, some core projects that are kind of the black highlighted lines there, and I'm gonna get into these a little bit. I don't expect you to be able to read the map. It's a map with a lot of information. But then we also, how do we cover a bigger area? And how do we tackle areas, right? We talk about issues with vulnerable users, right? So school areas, and we have a council member who brings this up in our notes. We have a lot of schools on very busy streets, right? And so how do we tackle that with vulnerable users? And so looking at speed feedback signs, reflective backlinks on the signals to try and address those red light running issues that we have, as well as doing specific projects. And I'll get into those in a little bit. And this is just a list of the projects. Again, we still have 3 quarter projects on the left. And then we're looking at doing 232 intersections with reflective backplates, as well as adding speed feedback signs in school areas. Okay. So what are reflective backplates? Okay. Well, it's basically, the gist of it is to make the signals clear and stand out. Okay. Make them conspicuous. So they stand out. You can see those lights, and actually I got a picture. Picture in the better that shows it in the dark. We've actually implemented at 5 locations where we have history of red light running crashes, where we put these backplates in to try and curb that, so people see the signals very clearly. And these are the dots here. You can see some of them are right off the interstate right there. Others are on 19th and Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway there. And so we've actually put 5 locations of these out to test this. And you can see on the left here, again, that's the point of them, right? The yellow back border makes the signal clear. So this application includes 232 additional intersections. Again, trying to cover that broader spectrum. How do we address a larger area crashes? School feedback signs in our school areas. We have put these out there and found them to be successful. The one on the lower right is near Hyatt on East University. The one on the left is on Southwest 9th. And so we found them to be successful. It's that sign that comes on and says, "Hey, you're speeding," okay? And studies from the federal government, FHWA, have shown that those have been successful in getting people to slow down for the most part. Okay? Shows drivers again that, hey, you're speeding and you need to slow down. Coming into a school area, be alert. Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, 19th Street, is currently their one-way pairs. So they have 3 lanes in each direction. Way over capacity. There's only 10,000 vehicles a day in each direction. 3 lanes is way more than it's needed. You could add 50% of that, and it wouldn't even touch that capacity. And as you can see on the left in the photo, the sidewalks, it's not a pleasant street at all to walk along, right? You got the sidewalk there right along the actual travel lane. And so our goal is, okay, we look at what are the issues here: rear end crashes, broadside, side swipes, okay, low pedestrian areas, or lack of pedestrian facilities. There are gaps along the corridor as well. So it's filling sidewalk gaps, actually providing a parkway between the travel lane and the pedestrian facilities for people to walk, and then adding a bike facility along 19th Street as well. And then right sizing the street too, again, getting rid of that excess lane so that, to try and curb that speeding, the jockeying that motorists do when there's excessive lanes. Street. So this is a graphic of what the left is the existing. You can see the 3 lanes going northbound, and then on the right, it's getting rid of the lane, adding parking, as well as adding a parkway between the sides. Forest Avenue, this is a street that goes right through Drake University. It's a 4-lane roadway, 2 lanes in each direction. It's only got about 7,000 vehicles a day, so you could triple it, and that would be more than enough capacity for a 3-lane roadway. So there's no need for it to be 4 lanes. And so again, right to the heart of our campus. So when we look at the problems there, again, issues with pedestrians crossing, an oversized street. And we've got speeding issues here as well. How do we tackle them? Right. Well, let's get rid of the excess lane and take it 1 lane in each direction. 3-lane roadway will add pedestrian refuge islands to help people cross the street, as well as kind of tighten up that corridor, and then include buffer bike lanes to provide a bicycle facility as well. US 69 Southeast 14th Street in the area of Maury. This unfortunately has one of the rankings that you don't want, one of the top locations in the state for crashes in terms of its intersection type. And so, again, higher speeds are issues, lots of truck turning traffic. And you can see the medians there. When you're trying to make a left-hand turn, you got a large volume of traffic at high speeds coming at you. And so a lot of issues with this intersection. So what are we going to do? We're going to actually separate the intersection so that way it's more of an offset. So the westbound traffic and eastbound traffic will actually enter at different locations and provide a more direct location connection to Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, as well as do a lot of access control. And so when we talk about that separation, what it does, it creates something called a positive offset. You can see while you're making a left-hand turn. Okay. This isn't something new. I'll get into this here in a second. And it also provides more of that direct connection to Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. So I mentioned this is not something new. We've done something similar to this before. In 2017 at Huddle Avenue in Euclid, in Douglas, this is the northeast side of Des Moines, we had an intersection that also was ranked the top 5 in the state, not a good ranking. And so we took a look at, here's what it was before. Intersections coming in at odd angles, high volume streets, little access control. We got the gas station has 3 access points. You could literally fill up your car at the gas station and just leave from the pump right out into the street, which is what was happening. So what we did, we realigned it. I'll kind of highlight it here. Right, so we did some realignments. Now we were talking about the offset T. So it used to be coming all together here. Now we offset the higher volume side street, did access control along the corridor, add pedestrian crossings. It says it's improvement. The previous graphic was 2017. Since the improvements were done in 2023, we've seen a reduction. The improvements were done in 2020, but we've been tracking the data since, and we've seen a 50% reduction in crashes, and more importantly, a 75% reduction in fatalities and severe injury crashes. So again, learning our lessons from what we've done before and applying it here as well. When I talk about positive offset, this was something, to be honest, when I came to Des Moines, I was kind of shocked to see we still kind of did. The older mentality, that state highway type roadway, again, I'm not using the state, but that was kind of the old mentality. When you have these medians, you're probably familiar with these, okay? You have these medians in the roadway. Well, one, it creates a negative offset, okay? So if you look here on this truck trying to make a left-hand turn, it's harder for me to see when I have permissive lefts, I have to get opposing left turners. Okay, so I placed a little red box there, car sitting there, see the truck's vision blocked by the opposing left turner. We've seen us putting this in all over, and I'm like, what are we doing here? So we have drastically changed. We do not do this anymore. And we've gone to what's called more of a positive offset. Don't get me wrong, there are times when the medians are needed for access control. And when it's not needed, why would we want to make it hard for people to see on the opposing left turners? Okay, so this was near the fairgrounds. There's the state fairgrounds right here, East University, East 30th Street. So we flipped it. We got rid of the median, and then we created the offset here, positive offsets. Now the cars can see from the opposing traffic. Seems pretty simple, but it's called positive offset. Okay. And again, if we've done this, there's another graphic in Google Earth that kind of shows it clear as you can see. We drastically reduced the crashes here by 63% just by changes like that, as well as, again, not just that. Before we had a slip lane, right? So we got these big intersections that are blown out. We got slip lanes. There's nowhere for the pedestrians to go along pedestrian crossings. That's not needed. So we tightened it up. So there are other improvements as well, but 63% reduction in crashes here at East University, East 30th. In general, this is a bar chart. We're geared up to go with the Safe Streets for All implementation improvements. Starting, we'd be bidding next fall. Okay, we've been bidding these next fall, and we're required to complete them within 5 years. We were successful in getting a $13 million Safe Streets for All grant for a $16.1 million project. So again, why these projects? Well, I highlighted number one because they're what are the problems and how we're addressing them. That's why, as well as things like they meet the criteria, they're on the high injury network, project readiness, right? You don't, I can tell you from experience, don't go for a grant if you have not done your homework on it. Sounds silly, but you want to have a project vetted and studied at least before, so you know what the scope is before you go for a grant. And project readiness, again, that's going to come back to you've done some of your homework to know what the scope is, and you also have to match this. Again, why these projects, right? 90% of the crash types are correctable by the improvements. 33% of the crashes are within the school zones on the high injury network are speed related. 31% are related to red light running. So we're addressing the problems that exist in these areas. Why these projects exist. So I talk pretty fast at you. And so, yeah, I leave you with this graphic here. I always kind of like to show this. We want a place that we want to be, or do we want a place that we can get to quickly? Okay. This was before, this is after. Right? Same exact photograph. I mean, I think you can see what is better from a pedestrian standpoint, what is better from a motorist standpoint, slowing people down. We got areas where we got lots of people existing, and so I try to show that graphic.
But
yeah,
again, we're talking about like completely understand the street changing intersection. I saw the crash reduction. Let's go back to your end up seeing fatalities and serious. When you reduce accidents by 63 and all that, but it doesn't seem to reduce that number. This is going to be affecting those numbers. That's the second question was, when you see your serious injuries and fatalities, from those, was it the street, was it driving, drunk driving? What caused the serious injuries, serious accidents? Was it the street?
yeah, great question. So his questions were, and again, I want to clarify, Mayor Connor, so when I was showing some of these statistics, these were project specifics. So that was looking specifically at this corridor here. The crashes were reduced, and then we had 75% reduction in fatalities and serious injuries here. So I was using this as we've done this before. We're going to apply these principles to US 69, and so this one, yes, the most important was the 75%, right? And so, and so that we applied to there. But yes, our numbers are still up there. And then to the question on the crash types, you are correct, and that's what we have to look at. What are the issues? And so when we look at these, and we put this in our grant application, and I apologize, I had to talk kind of quickly through this, but over here, we identify kind of what the crash types are, rear and left turn broadside, swipe right, and we can pull out with the ICAT data. It's a website of the DOT. Anyone can actually go to the website and it will pull out like whether it's alcohol involved type of users. So you're correct. We included these little bullet boxes to say, here's what the types of crashes were, and here's how we can address them, right? So we have lots of rear end crashes and left turning crashes. Well, we have a street where, again, I talked about the negative offset versus positive offset, right? So there's an issue right there. We got the speeds. We had a lot of red light running here. Signal visibility, you can kind of even see here. So answer your question. Yep,
You got it.
yep.
And I do like the reflective, I've noticed those around the lights, even in the daytime. It's better.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
So this may be more of a question for Dylan, but so your safety action plan is very comprehensive, obviously. If other municipalities want to get grants for do we have to do a full safety action plan, or is it just something we do with the MPO that has a macro?
Because the MPO is doing the safety action plan in a community that's a member of the part of our application or part of our, as we wrap up the plan, we will also be applying for regional city. So we're still figuring out what projects go into there and we'll be on that.
You say that we still do our own safety,
You said
we could, or do we have to?
it's up to the,
So we just want to do a specific project. We could.
yes.
I think that goes to encouraging folks to be involved with the MPO's plan, because that, if there are things in the MPO's plan that are identified, then to your point, the community could use that as the action plan. And say, hey, we're doing things from that action plan. Just kind of what we did here, but
Projects, the application will do better if it's got multi jurisdictions and it's. We'll be talking more about.
And again, when we first wrote our applications, it's gonna sound maybe silly, but I thought it was one of the very clearest applications that someone could write. First application, but it was very engineering like. To be honest, our second application, when we read other people's application, we went more of a fluffy approach. And maybe that sounds silly, but we kind of stayed at like the bigger level. You know, we talked about how we get more bang for the buck, and so we kind of stayed at more of that fluffy level. And I hope that describes it better, but not so engineering and technical in your application.
Weird.
Yes.
2 years, nobody understands.
The engineering term is.
Not fluffy.
The rest of them call it plain English.
Narrative, did.
Right, that's tough.
You know, when we were reading it first, we all thought we needed to go to 4-lane road. Went to a 3-lane.
That's what it's called.
But I went out to DOT and watched a little video. 2 cars are turning on. That all makes really good sense. We call it then.
Certainly, it's not, or
And
Long-term length.
I'm gonna make everyone maybe cringe, but I am proud to see the roundabouts going in, because again, when you talk about fatalities and serious injuries, the proof is there, no question, roundabouts reduce those.
Courtney, did you hear that?
Long run.
Not 4 in a row.
And actually, I'd say the series of them actually works the best.
Comment.
yeah, where's Johnson?
13-year-old, and I would have him turn at a roundabout all day, every day. Sitting on the intersection.
All right, thank you.
Right. Before we
All right, up next, we have a report, vote on mobilizing tomorrow final draft.
Thank you. For the last 18 months or so, staff has been working on updating our long-range transportation plan. This is a document that we're required to update every 5 years. The last time we did an update was in November of 2019, so that's why we're here today, 5 years later, to approve an updated long-range. All of the long-range plan documents, all the content is currently posted on the MPO website. We talked about this before, but if you recall, this is not a complete overhaul of our update. Some of the main things that we focused on this update were reformatting and looking at the design layout, making some changes there. We also wanted to just focus on making the document a little bit more concise, clean up the language in a few places good. Some content reorganization, moving some things out of the appendix and up to the body of the plan. The main change is really focused on updating the data throughout the plan. So scenario, one thing I would mention on the pro scenario is, you know, we did hear there were some concerns about that, and it's something that is in our work program to make some changes to how future. But also we made updates to the fiscal analysis data and as far as the plan content goes, there are 4 main chapters in this. They're broken out by modes. The first chapter is an introduction. It's kind of basically talk about history of transportation planning in the metro area, talks about other regional transportation plans that we connect to, and then outlines what's in the rest of the document. And then we have a chapter on roads and bridges, chapter on bicycle, pedestrian, and transit, and a chapter on aviation and freight. Each one of those chapters on modes is broken out in a very similar way. Existing conditions, state of the current system up front. We then have the measures and targets that are related to that mode, and then we talk about the fiscal capacity and the project list for those modes. In addition to that, there are 11 different appendices in the back that really go into a lot of detail. Anybody that's interested in really digging into how, the fiscal analysis was done, travel demand model validation, this is where you can find all of that really technical information. For this document, we do require a 30-day public comment period. We released this draft back on October 23rd. An online public comment through October 23rd. We also hosted a public meeting here at the MPO on October 9th. We're able to incorporate the majority of the comments that we received into the final draft. Some of the main comments we received were from the city of Moines. Table also provide comments. Dark comments, obviously. Transit chapter. Comments from flood chapter. Aviation and freight really had to do with freight. In there. We didn't reach out to the railroads. Unfortunately, we were never able to hear back from them, but we did look at the Iowa DOT state rail plan. We did pull in the projects. So we've got a connection there between our long range plan and the DOT's. And then the freight roundtable had some comments about various different other locations across the metro that have some train sites. We had some. We did in addition have some just general public comments that didn't really have anything to do specifically with content and plan, but those comments are documented in Appendix G, which kind of helps. So the approval of this plan today will fulfill our obligation to US DOT to have an LRTP will allow us to continue programming projects in our TIP projects to allow us to continue to do that work. We did present this to the technical committee at their meeting earlier this month. They do recommend approval of this document. Also presented to exec last week. Happy to take any questions you have, otherwise.
Approval. Second. By Duran, second by. The discussion. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 Sign. It's approved. Up next, we have a report and vote on the carbon reduction program funding recommendation.
Thank you. Just as a refresher, we did have carbon reduction applications due back on September 27th. On the screen before you there is a list of the 8 projects that submitted applications for the carbon reduction funds. You can see we had a little over $9 million in requests there. We had a presentation workshop on October 9th. This allowed communities to come in with their projects and present them to the funding subcommittee. After that meeting, the funding subcommittee did meet to develop a recommendation. The original recommendation was to award out 4.4 million of the available funding and then hold on to around 2.7 million. Staff did receive a letter October 16th from the city of Johnston. They had requested that we look at their application. So this was discussed with policy. They decided to send this back to the funding subcommittee to look at. So we did hold another meeting with the funding subcommittee on November 15th. Ultimately, the result of that meeting was to revise the funding recommendation to award approximately $2. So on the screen before you here is the list of the projects that were recommended to receive funding with the inclusion of the Johnson project. Nothing else changed in this recommendation except to over $1.2 to Johnston. That takes care of all of the CRP funding that we have allocated to us through 2020. So there is still funding in the 2029 year, about $1.6 million. assuming that this program continues in future new administration. I'm not sure what's going to happen with carbon bank. We'll keep track of that, and if something changes, we'll come back to this, the funding subcommittee. And based on what decision we made.
That, the 1.6 still be guaranteed though, even if
Not necessary.
Total did we give again?
We had around, I think it was $7.9 million.
It's 7.9 that we've given out.
well, plus the 3.6.
The original award to Dark.
So that's what we get. Yeah. So if Des Moines gets 2.5 and 3.6. Big, huge percentage.
Yep.
Like almost.
No, so just for clarification, sir. What's remaining in the fund on cap? In future payments, which is subject. Or are we guaranteed additional payments?
Nothing's guaranteed.
So I guess the money we're spending now is all.
Just to clarify too, the money that we are awarding this through fiscal year. The appropriations bill will be going. Or I'm sorry, the opposition. Yeah, and
So will we have another round or not?
we will burn more.
Gotcha.
That's all what Congress does, and we could face a situation where we have to. They don't appropriate more money, we might have to rescind something. Or find out a different way.
We do feel like if we have these project programs tip, better chance that they would not come in and take funding. If it was just sitting in a pot and not awarded out projects, we feel like that funding would be much more.
Like, just use myself. Altoona didn't necessarily. Oh, pretty good. We didn't pass. But in the end, like, we would think, well, next year we may have one. But if
It may not be there.
and like I would say, yes, but you tell.
So I do have a question. So in the event, I guess my assumption would be if we go back through the process. Or certain.
It's our funding guidelines. Can we go back to?
It's happened very rarely in the past. Maybe happened once 12 years ago, and I think at that time it was 50%. There's no set rule on how we would do it. They would talk about it.
Just a quick question. How long was the bug sitting there?
They were sitting there for a couple of years. The reason it was not awarded out was because they were still developing their side. See that funding spent. And so nobody really wanted to do anything with it. And at one point, I believe, back to this committee, we asked if you want us to go ahead and we did, at that time, wanted us to wait till the long range plan was completed. She came in, and I think everybody knows what's happening. So,
Thanks.
Mike's got a comment.
Can you be the comment? Mayor Jones Windsor Heights is saying, having a hard time hearing Mayor Connor talk. A lot of cutting in and out. We will do our best to raise our voices, project a little bit.
All right.
Like Dean's been accused of being hurt.
I will speak loud, Mike.
Anyone else? All right, so it is report and vote, so a motion. Second, moved by Joaquin, second by Des Moines. On this,
I would like to say, I came into this. thinking, yeah, Des Moines got way too much of this, and there's not gonna be anything left for anybody. Well, how you spend on dark, that's. And I still think, I think that would. Like, waste of money, and you're not gonna say getting carbon. But Sounds like we need to spend this money. Change.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion is approved. Suspended. Committed to being suspended. Up next, the report and vote on calendar year 2025 meeting dates. Dylan.
Just a quick item for you to set the meeting dates for next calendar year. And put those out in the agenda packet there on the screen so you can see it. Taking to our traditional third Thursday of the month. To just do the holiday. We also are proposing to stick with the 9 meetings for. I'll have note too that we are adjusting the technical executive committee a little bit. Doesn't affect this group, but I just want to allow staff to be a little more efficient to focus our time into 2 weeks rather than 3 weeks. With that, any questions? Yeah, second to third.
Like an alternate, could we change that?
Move approval. Second. Moved by Des Moines, second by Des Moines.
Maybe if I didn't get taken to the woodshed last.
You know what I thought about that. Any discussion, any pertinent discussion on the meeting dates? None, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those same sign. Dates are approved. Moving on, we have a report and vote on the technical training contract.
Thank you. I want to start this, I think this is going to be a conversation. A couple of notes here. One, just to keep in mind sort of the vision that I've been trying to work with all of you on, of an idea of an optimized entity. Have an aligned board, we want staff to work towards that vision. With that in mind, I appreciate the work. All of that work to get to the point where we can actually do the work of get to the line. So as we think about this project, or again, think about this agenda item, I want to make sure that we are using our time efficiently. We only meet 9 times. So I have this conversation. I want to hear what you all have to say about it. At the same time, I want to make sure that we get a decision and that let's start doing the work of the MPO. This situation is a little unique. Talk about a contract, appointment personnel issues. Me as director, however, this is also a contract related item. Yeah, sure. Together, we decide to let me run with whatever it is. I'll respect your decision, play within the box you give me to play in. I will do my best as we go through this to talk about the background and how we got here, what the options are. Just I don't want to assume anybody knows else on that, so I want to make sure we have a playing field there. And then, like I said, let's see. So if you go to the next slide, a little bit of the background situation that we're talking about here, the contract. So that's going to deploy me beginning back in 2011. In 2022, he became consultant. That was authorized with the previous director. I know there were some issues with that. Well on that, where we go here rather than how we got to it. In August of 2023, last year, we did annual had a item in there, the city ID within the office of these streets. And that was done knowing that we would have that non-compliance with that. So as we ended last year, back in December, we agreed to make exactly full-time consultant contract. That would allow us to alleviate the concerns of not being in the office, not a staff person anymore. And what we did is essentially took his salary benefits, turned that into an hour. Worked the number of hours that he worked here, staff person. That's where we were last year. So as we end this calendar year, we had a one-year contract, and in December, we need to determine what we do. And I will show you a couple options here, but really there's three options, and there's probably more. Just do nothing and end the contract. We can renew it more or less the same way it's been, or there can be some phased termination to that. What my first proposal to the personnel committee was to basically extend the contract as it is. And as you know, when we went to the human capital plan last, we did talk to the personnel committee about this. This was something we were having. We can recall back the human capital plan with the organization chart, showed that decision. But it was a consideration. We knew it. So last month, I met with the personnel committee and walked through this proposal. That proposal was to reduce the hours a little bit from 1,300 a year to 35 hours a week at that same rate, keeping more or less the same activities that the tax funding. There were objections raised to that, and those objections were really kind of two related items. One being the amount of funding. For that amount, you could hire someone who is full-time, by the time you factor in salary. Not here. And then also the remote. Having someone that's not here, funding and paying them is not being spent. I understand those issues, values that are placed. So the response from that subcommittee was take another look at this, see if there's another way we can go about it. You don't have to rely on the contract, if at all. And how would we transition them? That leads us to the next one, and this is what was included in the agenda. Was a phased termination while we find more. So the key elements of this would be that the contract becomes less of Zach doing the work as it is him teaching the work, getting other staff trained on it. At the same time that happens, the additional staff, making sure we shuffle the deck a little bit, have some redundancy. And I should note too, regardless of which we take, we do know we need to build in redundancy. So that we don't have one person without something. So that will be happening. If you go to the next slide, you can see a little bit staging of what this conclusion of this contract we have now, and then there will be kind of a two-phased contract going. First 3 months would be around 15 hours. That it's not really by a week basis, but that 195 hours works out. And then the last 3 months would be 15 hours. While that's happening, we would start. It's we're not, from a personnel perspective, we have the same level of personnel. You go to the next slide then. So where we're at, we presented this to the executive committee last week too, just some discussion. I had a discussion going well. So that's why I want to make sure that we're having an open conversation here. Great emphasis on this. And really there's some consideration. Lose institutional knowledge to gain the opportunity to train in staff. Do we re-examine what we have heard? Yeah, not to say we open that up. That's the factor here. And then again, just ensuring that we're all hearing from each other and that we get the problem. I'll pause there.
It's right now. So months and 3 months. That's currently what's on the agenda.
We've been on the personnel committee and worked. Personnel committee, I thought we spoke to it really well. I thought this was good.
What kind of what you, the personnel committee with unanimous?
As far as I remember.
I don't think there was a paper vote taken.
Nah,
We did both.
good comment. Yeah, originally we were. And we spoke with Dylan and he's comfortable with getting something to do it here full time.
We'll say we will make either one of these work. Obviously, my first foray into this was to say, yeah, I respect what we received and
I mean, we went through the handbook that's been, we did allow 2 days. of The organization. I think that's, and we knew that he went through, we knew exactly what to do that. So wanted to give him an opportunity. He's actually been a great employee here. We wanted to give him an opportunity to be able to find something else, but in the meantime, be able to provide for his family and others. The compromise, we didn't like any type of pushback from any. That's where we're at there.
Yeah, I think, so I expressed concerns last week at exec and, reiterate those. In general, one of the concerns that I did not express probably as fully last week as I should have is that in general, I don't direct personnel matters for my city manager, and I would, unless there's a problem, sort of view this organization in the same vein that, direction of how the work gets done and by who is not necessarily the purview of, is general my view. I understand that this role is a dual element, that there is an employment kind of component to it in terms of accomplishing the work. There's also a contract. Weird aspect to that, but in general, I don't really view it to be our purview. We typically take the recommendation of staff in terms of a proposal as something that would carry a significant amount of. So I would look at it as Dylan's responsibility to come to the committee if there is a problem and want to make a change, and the fact that that is not what he was recommending a status quo situation with a reduction in hours recognition of right sizing the contractual relationship and amount as the recommendation from staff, in my view. And secondarily to that is, and just as important is what I did express last week, that a loss of 13 to 14 years of institutional knowledge, regional experience, understanding of this group, and our direction and kind of how we've engaged with the staff in the past, all of that. Exiting that without a really good reason is a huge concern to me, that we would be looking to add somebody new, that would need kind of a significant runway for training. Additionally, we might not reduce the costs if we're looking at adding a staff person with significant experience, which I think will likely be needed given that. And then last, and just to be transparent, I think the third issue for me is that potential impact to culture and morale in terms of what we're saying to staff is the value of their experience here. So that it be exited or a new person at the direction of the policy committee as opposed to at the direction of the director through an work issue is. So those are the three with moving to a training tract that widens down. Expressed one or two of those last week and just.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was not able to be at executive. I've been on this Frank on now. I think I've been here. I've seen a lot of employees for years. From a pure experience standpoint and dedication. I do have a Zach have been here since. I know he's been here for quite a while, but he does have a decade. 40 question I would defer to large parts of Bill. I understand we are talking about contracts. Also defer to previous.
This contract matters, so it is within the government policy. It's not about any one individual, position. And in the best interest, they should, like, no operation should totally dependent on any one individual. We need to continue. Plan, nothing else. Make sure we have other people within this organization that pick up the piece that's needed. You should never know when something could happen. Price. How do we? Staff interactions, helping each other happen naturally in organizations. That's why we have city staff that work remotely. People dependent upon that knowledge and information, sharing of that. Yeah. For me, that's not naturally inferring people working each other and get the water. That doesn't happen.
If I may,
Mayor Jones is asked to speak.
I just want to interject. I appreciate what you're saying, Lynn, but I think that demonstrates that here today, I think Zach goes over and above to be here in person. To his project.
We'll go to Mayor Jones online. Mayor Jones, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. I hate Zoom. But so from my perspective, my biggest concerns were twofold. I think succession or transition planning and costs, and this is just me talking, but I don't think an organization should be perpetually contracting employees for tasks that they should be doing in-house. And I recognize that we're only talking about this contract, I think, specifically for the second time. I'm just saying that's how I think about contract employees in general. And especially when we're talking about, a significant price tag. I mean, 25 hours a week at $100 an hour, that's over $32,000 a quarter, $130,000 a year. So, I mean, I was looking at it, how do we transition those tasks to other employees? I mean, for both efficiency purposes and financial purposes. That's the position I was looking at, I was taking when, thinking about what is the succession plan here? Because are we looking at this are we just doing this in perpetuity then? Are we contracting, are we having a contract employee in perpetuity, or are we, at some point, are we going to move these responsibilities in-house? That's the concern I had at the personnel committee. That's my perspective on the matter.
Well, if the policy committee never got involved, complete disorder here, maybe everybody, who knows? So I do think that we, as a governing board of taxpayer minority, we get involved in these. We leave most of it to do. Secondly, I run a business since I was 23 years. When you start making exception for employees, and then you make another exception for that employee, just to make it all work out for that employee, based on decisions that employee made themselves, that's a slippery slope. Because now if I'm one of the others, use anybody's name, What if my parents die and their house is in Red Oak and I get it free and I want to live in Red Oak? But I should get to only have to come in, every once a month. Why am I not special like that other? It's okay, fine, I'll be contract. And so once you make these exceptions for employees, you keep doing, you're going to keep butting your head against it. And that's a terrible way to run a business or an organization because it should run from the top down. The decisions should be made and they should be followed. They should be followed by everyone. That's how you create a good culture. My opinion. That was my opinion as a personnel.
Thank you. So I'm mindful that this conversation here is happening nationally. A lot of companies out there. Post-COVID, the reality of remote work is still up in the air. There's a lot of companies that have gone the other way and pulled it back inside. There's a lot of companies that are still maintaining their employment mentality of remote work. I think that the goal of any organization ought to be, let's find the best people that can produce the best results for our organization. When I look at Zach and this proposal that's been presented by I think there's in my mind there's a great deal of recognition of the value that Zach brings to this organization. So much so that we want him to stick around and train underneath and set the level base of knowledge for success for the organization. I'm scared we're losing a good employee, and this organization is going to suffer because of that. I think it's ultimately at the end of the day, I guess my question before I fully resolve my thoughts is that this question is really there. Do you think that we have the technology and the ability to not only produce good quality work remotely, as well as, so that's on Zach's behalf, and then from a management perspective, we have the technology and the wherewithal to be able to manage.
I think that over the last 3 years we've been doing this, we've demonstrated. I wouldn't want to do it with everybody, and I understand where others concerned. I agree with what you said. We've been trading game. I don't know. And I don't.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the real concern that I have here is that I feel like the waters are being muddied between our past concerns with the performance issue of executive director and his lack of supervision. And I think that based upon that general sense of distrust, that is what is creating this scenario and mindset as we sit today. I don't think that's fair. I don't feel that's fair to this organization or to Zach or to Dylan as in his new leadership of this organization. I personally am a fan. I understand all the comments that have been made about contractual contracts, interaction and interplay between management decisions and contract employees. I'm of the mentality what we should do is extend it for another year, full year, and we ought to go back and look at employee input and reconsider that stance.
Anyone else? I'll just speak up in terms of the exception issue. Because I think this is, I don't want to repeat all the other pieces, but the exception piece, we're really dealing with what we do in a grandfather situation. Because I don't think this situation impacts the broader policy. We're not going to hire someone policy position we take. We don't have any other employees working remote prior to the new policy being enacted. And so I think this is actually kind of a unique one-off situation where the decision we make here doesn't set a broad precedent. It doesn't have that corrosive effect that Mayor O'Connor was talking about. I think this should be made based on the merits of this one employee and how this fits, recognizing that that situation was outside of or happened after the policy. And I think that maybe gives us flexibility, not necessarily to read, but maybe look at how we grandfather someone in. Maybe it does make more sense to grandfather an employee in and have someone on a full-time basis, knowing that this is grandfathered in, the exception in a very limited circumstance based on who was here at that time, not an overall change. So that's kind of how I view that piece. Don't think that the policy should be right.
So I agree with pretty much everything you said on both sides, right? There are great arguments sides here. So that makes it a challenging call. What we have in front of us is a transition plan, right? It's a transition back on. If we were to do this, Mayor Jones brought up a good point, and one of my questions was, if we were to do a full year, like if you would, is there a transition? Or is that just a in perpetuity, each year we're gonna renew the contract? What is the plan for that?
The initial proposal that I put out there would be to do either 6 months or an 18-month to get us on the fiscal year basis. And then we could be talking about this as more budgeting rather than doing it here in November, December. That doesn't really address the perpetuity of it. I think there's appetite for it. I think there's shape contracts so it less, performance issues or something that we don't have to get. That's my main concern. I don't want to keep having this conversation. Let's figure something out.
Zach doesn't want us to have this conversation.
Well, it's always what happens in conversation. What I'll say is it's unfortunate we have to have a name of a position as opposed to a contract. But there isn't one single person in this room that they walk out that door and never come back, call the MPO to fix. No one singular person, someone can't survive tomorrow. I appreciate all the staff, our board members work. One person doesn't define the MPO. Keep that in mind. Good people come. There may be employment opportunities out there. You not be here. I don't want to base a decision on, you're too good to lose. There's always somebody out there. Somebody's gonna be better than me being the chair next. There's gonna be somebody better than anyone in this room. So don't make your decision based on one person.
Part of my heartburn is that we have a policy in place. So we either need to have a transition as we're proposing here, or we need to change the policy because we can't do this.
Spend a lot of time moving forward, personnel committee, basically terminate Zach with the handbook down in the room. Now come back, open up the wound again to say, well, should we or should all been moving in one direction. And the transition plan was asked for, it came about the breakwater decision. Are we going to transition away? Back to this uncomfortable conversation.
And I agree with that statement. I think the situation today, we changed. When we made the changes in the handbook, we did not have a solid basis for leadership in this organization. Today, based upon the mid contract review that we just had, we're not that same boat today.
We did that. This 6 months. This was under Dylan. I mean, it wasn't during the chaos of the transition when we didn't have a director. No, we sat down in about 6 months and came up with that policies, and you and others have voted on that policy. And so if you had concerns about that, then you should have brought it up at the executive you're on. And could have brought it up at the policy meeting if you didn't agree with that. But this handbook wasn't done 3 years ago. This was done 6 months ago. We all voted on it. If you had issues with it, maybe we should have brought it up then. Or if we wanted to grandfather somebody, we should have brought it up then. Not when
you know, this has got to be really uncomfortable for you sitting over there. Because I was really uncomfortable for me sitting here, because Zach is a great employee, but he chose to move somewhere else. He didn't choose to stay here, and he chose to move somewhere else, and that's a great opportunity for him and his family. I can't change that. If he wants to move back, you can sit here full time, you could be an employee here. That's what the policy says, and you can work remotely 2 days. We all voted on it. They do whatever they want. I mean, I thought Zach's great. I mean, this is nothing personal, and I hope he knows it. But it is a very slippery slope that we're wanting to go down. Because what about any other employee that wants to do it? Just like Dean said, as an owner of a business, you better treat everybody the same, or we're gonna have problems. And if you don't pay people every single week like a business owner and have to treat many employees the same way, get yourself in trouble. And we've absolutely bent over backwards trying to give Zach enough time to figure out, okay, what are we gonna do? We have. And, you know, we can do whatever we want. I'm not done sort of this. It's not a bit, I mean, I just think everybody wants us to have more committees, get involved, do all these things. And most of everyone that wants that hasn't been here as long as Bob. And so everybody wants us to do these things. We take time, the chair went ahead and got us all together, and we spent hours on that handle. And we brought it in front of everyone. Agree with it. And, you know, there are a couple of points.
Go ahead, Mayor Clark.
I would just like to clarify something, that in general, every single one of our cities has contractual work done every single. We have contracts with engineers, with planners, with other organizations that is happening every single day, and a lot of those organizations aren't actually headquartered here. So I think, you know, there is a bit of difference there in my view of the fact that I'm not as concerned with a regular and ongoing contractual relationship because we have them every single day for things happening.
This was an interesting first meeting.
Thank you.
I feel like I contributed a great deal. I all feel the same. And I'll try and continue just to add. So I have to go to my Norwalk City Council. Thank you.
So that's the only thing I wanted to add is that, again, from my view, it comes back to a recommendation from staff as a primary, and contractual relationships happen every single day.
I don't think any of our cities, day-to-day operations, not that. I don't think that ever happens. It might happen in your city, but not staff. We're talking about staff members that contracted out for day-to-day operations. So I think it's two different things. I understand the difference between a contract and day-to-day operations. I don't think that's what
I would
any other
move,
city.
I would move the personnel committee's recommendation of the 6th.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, and we, is there any added discussion? And I'm going, I will recommend it in second, and I'm going to, at first, attempt to try to take a voice vote, but then most likely move to a roll call. Try one with.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick points that I'd like to address. Thank you for the clarification of timing. I forgot about that. But I still stand behind the sound of what I said. This happened 6 months ago. Dylan was not fully in his role. He's in a kind of a temporary, we're going to see how this goes. You know, and to emphasize Courtney's, well, and then I guess the second point is you said I could have brought this up at exec. I guess I'll apologize. I was not available to attend exec this past. You regularly attend, but I not have the opportunity for that. So that's why I'm bringing it in today. And then I guess to add on to I think we are.
What else?
What we're voting on.
We are voting on the phase out.
Fine.
being on 3 months, hiring somebody, and then Zach training and phasing them out. So 3 months and 6 months, his contract is
Just one point of clarification. Dylan, can you summarize again? Recommendation through quite a bit of discussion in the personnel committee, and if there was difference in opinion. Summarize what you originally recommended.
What I really recommended, if we go back, was to extend the contract either 6 or 18 months, 25 hours per week. Basically continuing what we're doing, just reducing. No phase out, no training.
6 or 8.
But 6 months, you were comfortable with extending it 6 months, knowing that we would have a permanent time solution to this.
6 months to get it to the fiscal year, and then if we needed to read.
What was your intent? Great question, I apologize, but the executive director now, was the intent that's into that 6 months? Be permanent replacement at the end of that 6 months, that would be a staff member rather than contract.
Not with the agreement. Either get it 6 months or 18 months.
You're essentially buying.
You get it on the fiscal year basis. So, issue.
all right. The move second, the appear being a discussion. We are voting on essentially 6 months.
So if you vote no, then his contract terminate. Or a new motion would have to be presented today to the end of. Is that the correct?
To clarify, this failed. You have no contract. I can make another motion. Policy board in the making things, so we have motion to approve 6 months right now. Based on the conversation, I'm gonna go ahead and ask for get out of here at 6 o'clock. Okay. Go ahead and we'll start. So again, it's voting on 6 months. Transition.
Mayor Bowles? Yes. Okay. Mayor O'Connor?
Yes.
David Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Rod?
I'm going to vote no with the intention of a supplemental.
Ted Bieber?
Yes.
Amanda? Carl Boss?
Yes.
Chagato?
Yes.
Josh Mandelbaum?
No.
Scott Mickelson? Oh, sorry. Scott Sanders?
Yes. And.
Scott Mickelson?
Jake is here.
Lenny, oh, there's your Len Norton.
Yeah.
Jeff Walters,
Yes.
Bob Andaway,
No.
Mark Snell. Mr. Snell, are you on the phone? Courtney Clark? No. Laura Revels, I can't ever say your name right.
Yes. Yes.
Jamie Ledford,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
Approved. Thank you all for that.
Next year, report and vote on the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment.
So in the agenda packet, the screen, there was a bunch of amendments that would be necessary to do what we just talked about. In that contract. Which is separate. Adding that, there's a longevity bonus that wasn't properly calculated. And then we have the travel manual consultant. The cost of that consultant was spread over fiscal years, so last year, this fiscal year, in the budget, the full amount that this fiscal year did not meet. Should have remained on that contract. To offset those costs, we do have salary bridge for vacant position that hasn't been filled yet, so we would take from that to make whole contract. Extend that, and then also we have budget surplus. There's about $35,000 we would take them. So this would be a budget neutral changes. Need those to be.
Move approval. Second. And seconded, any further discussion? I just want to clarify, I saw West Moines had asked a question, what the outcome, I believe, in the last vote was. Take care of it. All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Discussion on the budget amendment. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Budget amendment is approved. Up next, we have a report on the representative selection process. Bill.
Thank you. Today, Tracy sent out emails to the mayors of our communities and to the city clerks outlining the steps and requesting your 2025 duties to this committee. Both for all of the MPOs, so technical and see anything. So I will walk through that very quickly here. This is the process depends on the size of the community. So next. So if you're a community under 50,000, appoint your executive, your technical and your policy committee member. You belong to one of three sub areas that comes to the executive. The idea is that you get together sub areas, pick two representatives to serve on. We would like to have those back by February. We try to give some time because you might have council members or supervisors take effect. January, give some time to representation by February. The communities that are 50,000 as well as counties a little more straightforward. You have designated seats on the executive committee. So technical policy members, let us know what your policy members. Once we have all those in, action committee, February, new officers, standing officers, whatever we should do, we'll take new office. Yeah, that's all included in the letters that you.
Questions on appointments? Next. Service transportation block grant, set aside programs.
Hopefully there's a slide for this. Just want to make you aware that staff will be posting SDG applications on the website. Second, and those will be due by January 10th. We're giving people about a week longer to complete those applications. Plus from last year, we'll skip the applications for the funding subcommittee sometime in February.
None. Up next, Director report.
I have quite a bit here, so I will try to make it brief, and if we need to send out some more. Did you get that? So first item, update on the line board. I was going to introduce our board. Get to leave, but we need to be meeting with it tomorrow.
Introduce myself pretty well.
In the orientation, we will be working on doing something. That's part of the governance process. Making sure. Go to the next slide. Update on strategic planning. So again, we're working on trying to align our strategic plan with our annual process. Doing something like that in January, most likely. We have a certification review coming up in April. Also, it's kind of come up a little bit here, we're assessing the impacts from the, going to likely be some impacts based on the change in Congress and change in administration. Still trying to assess for that. But there likely be some change. Finally, the thing I wanted to dive into a little bit here, I want to respect your time too, is part of my offer for this position was to have executive coaching. I want to introduce Sarah. Back there, she is my executive coach. And she and her team had done a 60 gap audit. I think a lot of you participated in that in the survey. But first of all, I want to thank you all for taking the time. And I also want to share what some of the results of that. There were kind of, I don't know how well you can read that to get me the sense. Generally, pretty decent around this on a scale. Most of the results were fairly good, things on top of how I accept. We dig into that a little bit more on the next slide. You can see there's a couple areas. The takeaway here is being shown, I hope, that there can be trust, the process, relationships, those are all good marks. In terms of more of the lower end, or like trying to make sure I'm explaining thinking and having to see that process, making sure I'm not just doing things, but I'm testing assumptions. So a couple things we look at more of the interview results. These are kind of interesting, and I won't dwell on the findings one too much. But I thought it would be interesting to share what some that came out that were more needed. Second finding, that one. Leadership transition and building trust again, kind of. The next three findings are more. One of them is just this kind of push and pull sometimes on the focus of the patient. So just something to I think that's second one. Looking at how we expand the diversity of voices, and that can be just making sure the people that are here are speaking up. I think today demonstrates that. And also just actual diversity. Not a lot I can personally do about that, but it's a challenge, I guess, to consider that. And then the third one, just the regional versus local nature of regional interests and trying to put aside what that could be. And these are all situations I'm understanding that. Again, I think I'm not aware of already. So as we move forward, I continue to serve you the best I can. Some of the strategic parts with the board, those are things we.
Any questions, Bill, on that? Other items of interest that I have covered it?
Now I'm going to pass it to Shelby first, who indicated she had something to share as well. She had to leave. I'll do mine. We have a special event to share with you on December 4th. We're going to do a Zoom meeting with a handful of representatives from the MPO from Salt Lake City. We looked to Salt Lake City for some inspiration when we were putting together our last year. Their MPO, together with their Iowa DOT, does an economic impact study or assessment of their long-range transportation plan. We had put that in the work plan this year at the direction and guidance where we have been holding on that. We've settled some guard issues, but we want to take this pause as a way to step back, look at what we might want to accomplish here. And so the purpose of this meeting is to just hear what they do, what their benefits they get from it, and then consider what we might do. So if you're interested in this, please reach out to me. We'll probably include a link in the follow-up email, but we just wanted to invite you, try to be real intentional about putting things in front of you that are active things.
Anything from board members on non-action items? Hearing none, our next meeting date is January 23rd, 4 p.m., so that's 2025. Everybody next year, if you don't see you before, we are here.